Hey guys, Deathbyphiw here. Today we're going to have a special video going through the mid-season patch tier list for support heroes. So, stick around. Well, we're going to start at the bottom and start with D tier supports. I don't think there are any F tier supports, and I think with the mid-season patch there's been quite a bit of changes as far as balance goes of who's the better support hero. So, and I think you'll like these changes. So starting off at D tier, I think the one and only D tier support is Lifeweaver. I say this because he doesn't dish out a lot of damage. Yes, he got some tweaks, and I think the buff would have been good for him had they not increased the time from 1 to 1.5 seconds. The healing boost was definitely a great buff for him to have, but I still do think with Dive being the meta on DPS, Tracer being Queen, and like Winston and Doom being the kings on tank for Dive, that it's just really not a good time for someone like Lifeweaver who doesn't have a lot of mobility. So you know, he still needs some more tweaks in my opinion, and you could dish out a lot of heals and he has a good ult, but not really too fun to play and be a Lifeweaver main right now. Moving on up to C tier, I think Illari gets a bump up here to C tier. I've seen her a lot more in competitive play. She is doing quite a bit of damage, but I feel like her healing is still not that great. I think she's high C tier right now, like borderline B tier. She's viable. You could play her in different comps. She's probably like a B minus or a C plus, and I'll keep her in C tier because I like to try to keep things a little bit balanced in my tier list. But she's definitely much better than what she was. She was all the way down in F tier in previous tier lists. Now she's moved up to C tier. She's about C plus, B minus. Much better with the buffs that she's received these past few patches and this mid-season patch. Now, I don't think there are any other C tier supports. And just moving into B tier, Zenyatta. He was really broken for a couple of weeks, and then they tweaked him. And now with the mid-season patch, making these dive tanks much better with the certain comp that there is. And it's just not a good time for Zenyatta with his mobility. His Discord still is really strong. His ultimate still is really strong, and he does quite a bit of damage. But it appears as if I might have been wrong, and I'll correct myself my mistakes. I thought he was S tier in my previous tier list that I made after the first patch. Now the mid-season patch is here. It feels a bit harder to play Zen. I still think he's good. He's not terrible. He's not bad. He's not great though. And it is what it is. I correct my mistake and I apologize for it. He's about B tier right now. Another B tier support is Ana. She's right around the same realm as far as Zenyatta goes. She got a little bit of a buff with her biotic grenade. Instead of doing 60 heals or 60 damage, and now it does 90 heals or 90 damage. But other than that, not much has changed with her. She can dish out a pretty decent amount of heals, decent amount of damage. Her one issue is mobility and survivability. She doesn't have much there. I thought they would have given her more, maybe 100 HP or 100 damage as far as her biotic grenade goes, something like that. Maybe increased her damage or her healing by like 5. It would make her much more viable and probably bump her up into A tier. She's not in a bad place, but she's not in a great place. She does counter the DPS passive, and that passive did get nerfed, so that benefit there is a little bit less as far as her value, but she's viable in certain comps. I think she's really hard meta on maps like Junkertown. She does really well there. I play her there almost every single time, but other than that, you know, still a decent pick. A tier, I'm gonna say Brig. Brig just pairs up so well right now with helping out with Dive. She pairs up really well with a Lucio, and she does a lot of damage, and she can really help out your team and keep people alive and keep herself alive, more importantly, because this season has been all about survivability. She's bumped up in that tier list with some tweaks here and there in the mid-season patch. I think it you know, with the way the meta fell and some of the other heroes like Zen got a bit of a nerf, I think it makes her better in this current situation. And I feel like Lucio now is such a strong pick. Pairing up Lucio Brig works really well. So it's a good matchup, and it's a pretty good choice on support. And she has a lot to offer to your team. Her ultimate is really good. She has a, you know, she can, like I said, dishes out a lot of damage, and that proccing of her passive to heal folks is also really strong as well. There are better support picks than her. I do think the meta has shifted quite a little bit, but she's still a very solid, viable support pick in the current situation. Another A tier support I would say is Baptiste. I think he's a nice balanced low A tier, maybe B plus, high B tier support. He does a boatload of damage. His ultimate is really strong. The window, in certain situations, you could just melt other targets, and that is definitely very valuable with the HP buffs across the spectrum in Season 9 to have the ability to melt targets quickly and efficiently. Baptiste is that. He has a lot of utility. He can heal the team. He can save them with his lamp, and he has a little bit of mobility where he's able to jump up, and that's really what his downfall is, his mobility. His ability to dash away doesn't exist. His ability to teleport away doesn't exist. Speed boost doesn't exist. He can jump high, but dive being meta, that's not necessarily the best thing with like a Diva, a Doom, or a Winston jumping up onto you. They can get to you, so there's not too much of mobility there in favor of him for survivability, but still a very, very solid support pick, very viable in most comps. Another A tier support is Moira. I think she's probably the best A tier support and third best support in the game right now, and I'll get to explaining why. It's all about survivability. Her utility is her survivability. She does a boatload of damage, a boatload of healing, and she's able to work well in dive comps where she can dive into the enemy team and target with your tank, with your DPS, target, focus, and delete. Her coalescence is really strong in team fights, and it's almost like if you have Moira versus Moira, whoever pops Cole first is going to lose the fight, because you just wait a couple of seconds and you pop Cole afterwards as a second Moira in the game, and you're going to win that team fight in most situations. That's just how it plays out. I like playing Moira. I think she's fun to play, but I do think it's a lot less skill to play Moira. She's definitely by far the easiest hero in the game to play. I missed another support. I think Mercy is C, maybe B tier. I think with the DPS passive nerf, she's like C plus right now. She's not great, but she's not as bad as she was with the 20% healing reduction from the DPS passive. She really didn't get anything out of this patch besides indirectly benefiting from the DPS passive nerf. That makes her a little bit more viable. I think they may tweak that a little bit more. If they do lower that passive down a couple of percentage points, maybe even down to 12.5 or 10%, Mercy could jump up into like low B tier. She's viable in certain situations, but you really benefit when you have a good duo to play with who plays like a hit scan or a sojourn, and you can pocket them and just play well together as like a duo. Other than that, solo queue play, it's hard to play her. Team play, if you know who you're playing with, she can bump up into a B tier, low A tier kind of way of playing her as far as the tier list goes. But if you're solo queue and playing Mercy, it's rough. It's better than what it was before. I think I had her in D or F tier previously, but she's right around solid C. You can play her in certain comps. You play her with a good duo. So sorry, Mercy players. Maybe things change. Maybe things get better for her in a future patch. But right now, she's just okay. Not terrible, but not really all too good. S tier supports, what you've all been waiting for. So this is a no-brainer. Lucio's S tier. He hasn't changed. He He's hard S tier. I think he's by far the best support in the game right now. He's S+. He just offers so much utility to the team with the speed boost. He can dish out a boatload of healing as well to your team. His wall ride just makes it so good for him to go and recontest points, to touch points, to force overtimes. His ultimate is really strong. You know, thinking of the DPS passive, Zenyatta, you can still, in Zenyatta's Transcendence, you can still lose HP in it if you're in Zenyatta's ult. And Lucio, like, his overhealth on his ult is just significantly better in that situation. So he's just a really strong support who does a lot of damage, pretty decent amount of healing, and just offers a lot of utility with his speed boost for the team. Now, S tier, and I say this is a solid S, not S+, but Kiri's back. It was a short time. It was 2 weeks of her not being hard meta. She's back to being hard meta. Kiri Lucio is the meta right now on support. It works so well with dive. Yeah, she can't 2-tap people anymore, but the meta has shifted quite a bit. Like, if you're not running Kiri Lucio, you can run Lucio Brig, Lucio Moira, and still do similarly as well. But Kiri Lucio is it. Kiri just offers so much utility, so much damage and healing, and so much survivability for herself. I mean, that's what this meta is all about. This season's all about. And with the Zen nerfs, she's definitely the pick to go to on the second support list, followed by Lucio. Yes, other comps do work, but you know, she's definitely the meta again. So short-lived. She was a meta for 2 weeks, but she's right back to it. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree? I try to keep this list a little balanced as far as from S tier to D tier. I don't think any support's overly terrible. You know, obviously Lifeweaver needs a little bit of love, but he's not god awful. He can work in certain situations. So yeah, that's it. That's my tier list for supports. Hope you like it. And as always, happy gaming.